Hey everybody, welcome back to Everyday Journey. Today we're going to work on the microwave again. This is actually going to be a shop fan. That's what I'm going to turn it into. Um, and this is actually part 2/3 of this series. The first part was tearing apart the microwave, so we have all these parts. The second part was going through and testing a few of these, all the components, most of the components anyway, just to make sure what we got, make sure it works. And this one, we're actually going to go through and start cleaning up the wiring so that we can get down to just the basics of what we need. That way we don't have so much stuff interfering with the project. So let me go ahead and zoom you guys into this so we can see what we're working with, and go ahead and start getting started with this. All right, so as you can see, just big old rat's nest of everything. What we're going to start with at the moment, I guess, is I'll go ahead and start right here. Of course, this is all unplugged, so that way we don't actually short circuit anything. I'm going to start right here. We'll get this magnetron out of the way. As you can see, I've already got the transformer and the capacitor removed from this. The magnetron itself is disconnected, and we're about to actually disconnect this thermal fuse here from the magnetron. That way we can go ahead and just get it out of the way. Of course, this wasn't powering anything except for allowing the circuit to be complete. So now let's go ahead and cut some wires. We've got these two wires right here. These were actually what was hooked to the transformer, and I'm going to go ahead and just disconnect things. Start right here. This is where it connects up to the this is where all your power comes in and goes through the fuses, and goes through this, which will it'll actually just clean up everything. That way you're not backfeeding a lot of noise into your house wiring. If you remember back in the day, you could actually turn things on and see the lines across your television. I don't know if the new ones do that or not, but that's the noise we're talking about. So there's our wire for that. Now we've got the white wire. It actually comes all the way down to the back of this relay, and we're just going to go ahead and clip it. I'm going to leave it a little bit long just in case I ever needed to connect to it. But after testing purposes, or after testing, I'm going to go ahead and remove that completely. So get that out of the way. Now we've got this wire here. It actually goes back to one of our switches, limit switches, door switches, I guess. I'm going to cut that, get that out of the way. So that takes care of one thing. I'm going to go ahead and start with this one here just because it's right here in my way. This right here, I went through and I was testing these. You would think, given the shape and everything else, this is a thermal fuse, and it is in a way. But let me show you what it does. Where typically these other ones here, they are connected until it gets too hot, and then once it gets too hot, it will basically trip that circuit so that nothing is going through it anymore. This is just the opposite. This one I found out, let me plug it in and we can see. This one, if we short this, it actually turns on the fan. And my guess is what it's doing is, in the case that you got too much heat to this one, it would turn it on. That way the fan could blow and try to get rid of some of that heat. We don't need that at all. So I'm going to go ahead and just unplug that and follow it back to the circuit board here. And we're going to go ahead and clip it right where it's at. And like I said, this is This is just part of the actual microwave features that are not needed for what we're doing. So we'll go ahead and set that aside. And let's see, what else we got? We've got this door switch, which I believe we're going to keep for now. We've got these switches here, which operated the fan. Oh, we've got it unplugged. Operated the fan. I did find that the light and the fan that are on here, they actually had a place where I was actually pinning out those buttons that go on the front. You could actually turn it on directly from the front, directly from those buttons. They probably just didn't have a button going to it. So this is most likely just an extra part of this circuit board so that you could actually run the switches somewhere else. So we may or may not use this. Right now I'm just going to go ahead and keep it connected. Actually, I'll go ahead and I'll remove the connector for it. Like I said, just to get it out of the way for the moment. But this, instead, we'll just put it over to the side because we're probably going to reuse that. So our next thing is this right here. I honestly do not know what this is. My guess is, and if you can see that, my guess is that it's something to do with maybe the steam or maybe sensing the smoke, but I don't think we need that. So to test that, I'm going to actually go ahead and turn this on, and then I'm going to unplug it from the circuit board and see if things actually run. So we'll go ahead and plug this in and remove that from the circuit board. This is quick. We could always just plug it back in. Set this aside for the moment, and then we go ahead and pin out our feature on here. And I know you can't see this, but it doesn't really matter. I've showed you this, how this goes in the other. And it's telling me to insert food, which means I got to open the door. So I just operate that switch real quick. And cook time. And start. And it seems to be running through the timer, which is all I really wanted anyway. So as long as it's not interfering with any of that, then I don't need that piece. So let's go ahead and unplug that again, and now we know for sure we can get rid of this. So next thing, we know we don't need this fan for this anyway. I do want to keep the clip and everything on here, and since my goal is to clean up this circuit board, we'll just follow these wires back to wherever they are and go ahead and cut them. Now in the cases that you have something like this where it's also going back to this light, we'd probably want to keep this connector just for maybe a future project. So in that case, we'll go ahead and cut it a little high. That way we can always wire back into that if we need to. So there's our yellow wire. Our white wire is going, looks like all the way back here to this connector. And again, I'm going to cut it a little bit high just in case I need to use it. I don't know that I will for anything, but just in case, and I can always cut the excess off of it later. So this blue wire is actually going all the way over to our plate rotator, whatever you would call it there at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and keep a lot of length on this wire for it, and go ahead and just cut it right in the middle somewhere. And then while we're at it, since there's only two wires going to that, let's go ahead and just cut the other one basically about the same length. So then we remove that. and set it aside. And so now we've got our blue wire, our white wire, our yellow wire. And let's see, we've got our last wire here is our black wire. And it's going down to this other door switch, limit switch. So we'll go ahead and we just cut the wrong one. It's probably not going to matter, but we may have an issue with trying to make this work for the time being. So you just have to remember that this black wire here is supposed to daisy chain over to this other limit switch. And I've got it on video, so I can always check that out. But for our purposes at the moment, we've got our fan out of the way. So we'll go ahead and set that aside. So now we're left with, we've got our start run capacitor for our fan, which we're going to need. Leave that connected. We've got all our wires for our fan. We're going to need those, although we may shorten them later. We've got our power wire coming in. We're going to need that. So then we've got these. And there's a lot of these. These are, like I said, these are just they're just thermal switches or thermal fuses. We don't need that anymore because we're not actually cooking anything in this thing anymore. So what we can do with this one is we can go ahead and wire this directly up and get rid of all this. So for the time being, we're going to go ahead and just zip tie that together so that we know where it goes. Actually, better yet, we'll save the zip tie. And we'll just tie this up. There we go. And we'll go ahead and cut our wires off of that one. We'll just know that we got to reconnect those later on. Let's see, we got these other ones here. Looks like one is definitely going up to our fan. And looks like it's kind of daisy chaining through here for our light. Again, the light we don't need anymore. So we can probably get rid of that one. And this looks like, what is this going to? No, this is our power save feature. So we know our power is coming from here and going through this first one, going through the second one, and then continuing on to several different places. One of them being our switch over here for the door. So for now, let's go ahead and just disconnect this one. Get this fuse out of the way. And we don't have a way of connecting that, but we can just tie that off. Or better yet, let's see. Let's go one better than that. And let's just go ahead and clip this. And again, I'm going to make this a little long, that way I can reuse the clip if I needed to. And so that needs to be connected to these two wires right here. In this case, I am going to go ahead and and zip tie it together. Get that out of the way. And I'm only zip tying it just because I want to make sure that I keep these together for now. Make sure we're not going to lose any wires out of here. And so we should be good on that. So our next thing, we're going to go ahead and try to get rid of these lights. Don't need those. Although I am going to take note of where they go, what they're wired to. Because I was toying with the idea of actually putting a light on this. Because in some cases, you might want one. So, I'll go ahead and clip it right here, but I will make note that that is for the light. And I'll do that after. And then our black wire goes over and actually connects directly up to power. So again, we're going to go ahead and just cut that a little short. And we've just cleaned up quite a bit more. Alright, so this orange wire, this was what was going to our rotator for the plates. We don't need that. Although I'm going to leave it just a little bit long. Just going to get rid of the excess wire. And this we're going to have to fix after the fact. This is actually a battery, your backup battery. And it's what keeps your clock time and everything else. I do want to do that. That way if I unplug it and move it, the clock is still good. But I probably don't need this length on it. Currently though, I'm going to leave it in place just because it's easier to deal with this. We may just, it's got a screw hole there. We may be able to just screw this somewhere to our project. And then if we need to, shorten the wires later. So we'll just go ahead and set that aside for now. And it looks like we're down to what things we need to keep, except for this light. Let's see. So currently, and I don't know if we need it or not, but this orange wire right here and this or black wire, they're connected through this switch here, or through this connector. So we're going to go ahead and leave it to where they stay connected. So we'll zip tie that together, and we'll see if we need it connected or not. If not, we can just get rid of the excess wire. But for now, that gets us our light out of the way. And now when we look at this, our project currently consists of just the battery, the power saver switch, and that's probably going to go away. Actually, it will go away. Let's go ahead and check it out real quick though. Well, actually, since I don't have power to this whole thing yet, because I have to reconnect all these wires, I don't know which way this is supposed to be, whether it's supposed to be in the on position or the off position, and I don't want to mess that up. So we're not going to take it off of there just yet, because I still need to check and see which position that needs to be in. If it's in the off position and it makes everything work, then I could just clip the wires. If it's in the on position where it's actually making contact, then I'm actually have to clip the wires but then solder in a jumper so that it still makes that connection just without the switch. So at the moment though, I don't know which way that's going, so we're going to go ahead and leave it be. I think we're going to go ahead and start connecting up these wires again. That way we can make sure that we get everything powered up, and then I can test that. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick off camera, and we'll come back to it. Alright, so we got everything connected back up here. The one thing I want to check on is these switches here. I'm not sure that they're needed. I actually have power on it at the moment. What we're going to do is go ahead and put it into the, make sure that it's actually working. So we're going to put it into the cook time, make sure that that's working, and go ahead and start it. And it tells me insert food. So this is always going to be a problem, I think. Every time I take the power off of this and then turn it back on. So I think we're going to have to leave this door switch, or at least leave some kind of switch so I can simulate opening the door. But now that we've simulated that, let's go ahead and start it. And it's cooking. Well, it's counting down the cook timer, so that part's working. So let's clear that. And now let's disconnect these. I don't think that they're needed for what we're using, so we'll go ahead and disconnect that one. Disconnect this one just in case it's going through. And if it still goes through that function, then we know we don't need that. We can remove that wire. So we'll go back into the cook time, and it looks like it's working. And it's counting down, so that part's good. So we don't need those on there. I can go ahead and take this wire off. That way we don't have it in the way. I can disconnect this wire here. And then our next thing, well actually let's go ahead and test the function of the fan first. And I've disconnected the buttons for the fan, so I'll just go ahead and do the pin out for it. And fan still works without those connected. So yeah, we don't need those. So I'll go ahead and unplug it and disconnect that wire. So it'll be one less thing in the way. But it's a good thing to keep these right here. I think I tested them, and I think one of them's normally open, one of them's normally closed. And if you wanted to keep these, maybe a good idea to go ahead and put a note on them. Put a label on them or something. That way you know for the future. Although it's always a good thing to go ahead and test them beforehand, just to make sure before you use them in a project. So go ahead and wire that back up together. And we're going to go ahead and cut this one. Wherever my cutters are. There they are. And go ahead and cut this one. And get that out of the way. So our next thing is to test out this. And let's go ahead and plug it back in. I know you can't see this, but now it says attention, check food. And that's because I powered it down while it was in the process of cooking or simulating cooking. But this right here is going to have to be, we need to take it out of here, but I think it needs to be connected all the time. And we'll test that out by, yep, disconnecting it there. So it means I'm going to have to make sure that these are wired together so that we have power all the time. And currently I can do that by unplugging it, clipping those wires, and go ahead and strip it, and then twist them together. And that will remove the switch from it, and it'll just always be on at that point. So now when I plug it in, I should be able to get power to everything. Everything should be working, and our display is lit up. So we got the switch out of the equation. Now we have a little less stuff here to worry about with our project. So this looks like everything that we have to keep. This is where our power is coming in. Now granted, I could wire this up directly so that it's not going through this, but I kind of like it because it's got the fuses to help keep anything from blowing, tripping a breaker, an actual breaker, and it also reduces the noise. Although I don't think I need it for the fan, I don't think it's going to produce that much noise, but might as well go ahead and keep it on there. One thing I will do is remove it from this piece here, which is just a piece of sheet metal from the microwave, and we'll actually just mount the circuit board directly into our project. Alright, so there we go. Now we're left with just our fan capacitor, run capacitor, our power cable, the power module, I guess you would call it, or the noise module with the fuses, and our door switch that we need, and our display. And the only thing that's questionable at this moment is whether or not we're going to use these switches for the light and the door. Of course, I probably may or may not use the light, so in that case there's only one switch needed here, and I can actually do both of these functions from the pin out there for where our buttons go. So I may just wire my own button on there. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But we actually have a lot less things to be able to put in our project here, and it definitely makes saves a lot more space. So our next thing is actually to build something to actually contain all this. I thought about making this look like a regular shop fan, but I don't think it's really needed. Whenever you look at the regular shop fans, they got the huge big fan on it, and then the nozzle that just directs the flow out. This one already has that in the way that it works. So really all we need is just a box to be able to put it in, and then we got to worry about or work on how to actually position this, make it to where you can actually adjust you adjust the direction of it just by moving the entire fan, but to direct it to where it goes up or down, so that if you're having it on the floor and you want it to direct and blow directly up in your face, then of course you want to be able to move it so that it blows up at you. So we're going to have to work out that, but we'll make the box, figure out how to put the display in there and everything, and then figure out the direction of it, or how to actually move the direction of it, all in one really. So that'll be our next thing. We're going to go ahead and build the box. So if you've watched up until this point, definitely appreciate it. Hopefully you're finding it interesting, and if you wanted to tackle this project on your own, then all you need is one of the fans one of the microwaves that typically would go above a stove, and that way it actually has the exhaust fan on it, and that's where you would get all these components. And you can normally find those for free on Craigslist or something like that, where somebody has just updated their appliances and they have one that doesn't match anymore, and so they go ahead and switch it out. Maybe they got an entire suite of appliances and they no longer need the other one. Of course, I hate to get rid of one that actually works, so maybe like mine, you can actually find somebody that's getting rid of it because of the fact that maybe it's got a broken door handle or something like that. In the case of this one, it was pretty roached. It had the broken door handle, and it looked like somebody tried to put it through a fire or something as far as the buttons go. But so all I'm doing is actually reusing or repurposing it. I'm not taking one out of use that could be used otherwise. Although that's entirely up to you. You can do what you like. So anyway, like I said, our next project or next video in this series will actually be to make the box for it so that we can put all this stuff together and then have an operational fan / timer and clock. And I think it'll look pretty cool. So definitely like, subscribe, comment. If you've got any questions, I'll try to answer them. Hit that bell notification. That way you know when the next video on this series is coming out. And until next time, y'all take care.